Dirty flippers are ruining this hobby, at least according to many of the comments that you see here on YouTube. But I don't think that is the case. In fact, I think flippers are very beneficial to this hobby. And in a few moments, I'm going to share why. But first, I want to talk about why so many collectors have a distaste for flippers. And I think that there are a lot of reasons, but one of the main ones is that I think collectors are concerned that if people become interested in flipping comics, then they'll lose their love for the actual hobby and the comics themselves, and instead only become interested in the money. But I don't think that has to be the case. In fact, as I'll share in a few moments, I think flipping comics can actually grow someone's love for the hobby. But before I get into that, I want to talk about why flippers are beneficial to all of us that are in this hobby. And it's first of all because they make comics more affordable on the secondary market, because they're going to yard sales or Facebook and buying comics that otherwise would never be available to collectors and putting them on the marketplace, which means, of course, they're increasing the supply of comics on the market. And as we all know, as supply goes up, prices go down. In other words, if there are no flippers, then an LCS in whatever town has a monopoly on the comic book market. Or dealers at a comic book convention, they can charge high prices because if you want the comic, they're the only option. But all of a sudden, if you've got flippers involved who are going out on the hunt and finding these comics and putting them on eBay, then a dealer can't just say, well, I'll charge kind of whatever I want. But they have to say, well, I've got to beat these eBay prices or no one's going to come buy from me. And so they drive prices down, which of course is good for all of us who want to buy comics. But flippers are not only good for buyers, but they're also good for people who are looking to sell their collection. Because if you're someone who's inherited a collection, or maybe for whatever reason you just need to pay bills and so you've got to let go of your comics, if your only option is going to an LCS, then you're always going to get pennies on the dollar. But all of a sudden, if you've got more buyers out there, if you've got these flippers out there, then of course it's going to increase the demand for your comic books, which is going to drive up the price for what you can sell them for. Of course, if someone is looking to sell their collection, the very easiest way to do that is to march their comics down to their local LCS. And so if someone like me who does flip comics, is a little bit of a side hustle, wants to be able to get these collections, well, I've somehow got to offer a better deal than the LCS is. It means one of two things. Either I have to pay more or I have to offer some kind of better service, like go to their home so that they don't have to make the drive to the LCS. And of course, the seller wins in that scenario. Now, before I get to my next point, of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, I'd appreciate it if you consider doing so now. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, flipping, I believe, actually brings more people into the hobby and grows their love for it because it makes it more affordable. I mean, I look at myself, I've got some nice books in my collection, but I never would have been able to afford them if I hadn't been able to flip other books to help me pay for it. As you know, if you've watched my channel, I have 7 children, so I just don't have hundreds or thousands of dollars to throw around. Now, obviously, some people have that, and so flipping might not be necessary to them or important to them. But for someone who's in my financial position, the only way that I can participate in this hobby, beyond maybe buying some dollar bin books, which are still cool and fun to do, but if I want to buy nicer books, flipping is the only way that I can do it. I can't look at my wife across the table and say, hey honey, I dropped $500 on this comic book. Yeah, oh well. I have to say I dropped $500 on this comic book, but it's only because I was able to sell other comic books and have the hobby pay for itself. With a little elbow grease, I can pretty much break even, which is what I want to do. And of course, as I begin to build my collection and obtain some of these books that I love, then my love for the hobby actually grows. So flipping doesn't detract from the hobby for me at all, but it enhances my love for it because I can actually be a real participant in it. I mean, I think all of us, even if you're not into flipping, obviously want to have important books, valuable books. And for a segment of the collecting community, flipping is probably the only way that's going to be a reality. As many of you know, my all-time grail is a Fantastic Four #5, first appearance of Doctor Doom. And even a low-grade copy of that book is going to be a couple of $1,000s. And if I just had to pay $1,000, I would never be able to obtain that book. And still, obviously, I don't have it yet. But one of the things that's going to one day make it possible is flipping comics. And then every time I flip a comic, I take a little bit out of it and put it in my Doctor Doom fund. I might funnel into other books. It's not like Doctor Doom is the only book that I'm going after. So I'll use the money that I get from flipping to buy some other books. But each time, a little bit more goes into that Doctor Doom fund. And one day, by faith, I believe that I will have a Fantastic Four #5. But again, flipping is the only way that it's going to be possible for someone like me. And flipping also enhances the love for this hobby for some set of the collecting community because it adds to the thrill of the hunt. I mean, of course, we all love, whether you're flipping or not, finding a book for $1 that's worth $20, but especially when you know that, oh, I can turn this dollar into 20 and then buy this book for 20 that I really wanted, man, that produces a lot of excitement. And so again, brings collectors like me into the hobby. I mean, before I started flipping a few years ago, I was pretty much just reading comics digitally. But because of flipping and understanding and watching YouTube videos on how to do it, learning about eBay, all this stuff, all of a sudden, I'm someone who loves this hobby more than ever. I'm making videos and all this kind of stuff, and it's only because of flipping. Now, maybe you're looking, and maybe you're right. I'm just a biased flipper, and I'm a dirty flipper, and I'm all wrong, and that's fine if you think that way. But at least wanted to provide a different perspective, especially if you see flippers as only in it for the money. That's certainly true for some people. I mean, there are some people who it's just a business, and that's okay for them. I personally don't have a problem with that. But for collectors like me, it's something that's just a necessary part to be an active participant in this hobby, especially, again, obviously on that secondary market. Now, of course, I know that there is a subset of the community who will never flip any of their comics at all because they love everyone that comes into their possession is precious to them. And they see it as their duty to be a caretaker of this book until death do they part. And that is totally cool. I'm not trying to encourage anybody to flip. If you never want to sell any of your books, take them to your grave. I've had a commenter say before that, hey, their comics are going to be buried with them. Awesome. Great for you. Enjoy the hobby how you can. But I think that, again, there's room for both of us, and we never have to throw out the baby with the bathwater on any of these things. You collect however you find enjoyment in the hobby and however is financially responsible for you in this hobby. But you tell me, what do you think about flipping? Can a legitimate collector be a flipper, or is he betraying the hobby? Have you flipped before? What's been your experience with it, if so? Or are you a never flipper? Or are you someone who would flip but just hasn't done it yet? I'm curious where you're coming from. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, I'd appreciate it if you consider doing so now. Like, comment, thank you.